Aristotle Full Throttle program.
It is an honor to be here. I am a huge Aristotle Full Throttle fan. I love your channel. I love your videos, and it's really cool to be here. Finally, you invite me
I
onto the
know.
show. I've been waiting.
I've been getting it sorted out. I thank you so much for having me on your show, Film School, which is such an awesome show. You guys should check that out on YouTube. I've got the description on the bottom. You can check that out at The Gory Show on YouTube, and also follow Justin on Twitter. He's got an amazing channel that he started a new show, Film School, which is really, really cool, and you address a lot of awesome issues and stuff like that, and you integrate like modern day things that are going on in that show, and I love it. And you know, I'd be remiss if we don't mention Beirut now. This is like right now there's some craziness going on in Beirut. There was a gigantic explosion this morning, and I cannot imagine the terror people are feeling there right now, which is it's just so shocking. I'm sure you saw that on the news.
Yeah, absolutely shocking. My heart goes out to that city. I'm just praying that the damage and the casualties are not as bad as it looks in those videos, because it truly is horrific.
Yeah.
And you know, I hope it's not too bad.
It's unbelievable. It's really, really very, very shocking. I just want to welcome everybody on the platforms. Thank you guys for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about how to get back to work right now in this new environment, this new world we live in. The coronavirus situation has really limited access to everything. So, you know, us in the film industry, television influencing, all those things, we're trying to figure out how we can continue to move forward in this new world. And Justin is just the right guy to help us walk through that and think out new possibilities. What are some of the things? Before we get started on that, I would like to start the live on Instagram, and so that the viewers on Instagram can join in on the discussion as well. And we're going to try something new today, kids. Justin is going to go. It took me so long to figure this out, and it's the easiest thing to have thought of, but it took me forever. Justin's just going to call in on the Instagram as well at the same time, so that the people viewing on Instagram can watch.
Not the slickest solution, sorry guys, but
I know, but it should work, I think. So we're just going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to welcome the folks on YouTube.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. Yeah, it's just been these last few. Hey, Tatiana. Hey, Candyland. Hey, Angie. Welcome. Our guest today is Justin Coloma. He's a filmmaker. And let's see. Were you able to send a request on Instagram?
No, I'm not seeing the. You know what? Maybe I'll get off my Wi-Fi, because my Wi-Fi is a little shoddy. I'm in my garage. This is my home office / garage.
It's very
so
lovely.
I'm on your thanks. I'm on your Instagram, but I'm not sure how.
Oh, go to the Aristotle Full Throttle Instagram. I think that's.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should really integrate those. I have two Instagrams.
There we go. There you are.
So yeah.
Cool. All right, let me mute you.
Mute that and then hop on.
Justin Coloma joined and request.
I will accept that request. Guys, thank you for bearing with us during this. Is modern technology. We all love it.
Sorry, guys. I am old.
It's all good.
I don't see an option to join your thing.
Let's see.
I think maybe something you need to enable, or
I don't know. Well, we won't fuss with this for too long. We are live on Instagram, but if you guys want to catch the dialogue, definitely go over to twitch.tv/Aristotle Full Throttle. I'm not sure that I know that I might have to be following you. I think we are following. There it is.
There we go. Joined. Request. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. I just got the send request.
And
Let's see. Maybe I can get
Perfect.
A good shot from here.
Go live with Justin. And we're live on all of the platforms, finally. We're taking full advantage of the technology availed to us. So, Justin.
Yes,
now,
sir.
How have you been? How are you, sir?
Oh my gosh. Well, how have we all been is the question. I mean, I feel like I'm doing okay. I know there's people that are really struggling right now, so I don't want to like complain.
Yeah.
Um, I'm doing all right. You know, my family and I are in good health. We're here in Los Angeles, like you are, um, and I started it. Oh, let me turn my volume down.
Yeah. Got the volume all the way down. Go on.
Um, yeah, so I'm doing all right, man. I'm still trying to push forward, making content.
Yeah.
I like you said, I work in the biz in the industry, and we're all trying to figure it out. Like I'm not the only one that's struggling right now, trying to get things going. But I feel like I feel like we can get through it.
Yeah, I think there's like some things that are really important right now, like testing, like rapid testing. If you can get tested within 15 minutes, it seems like that would be a good solution for people who work on set in tight quarters.
No kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been the testing has been taking like weeks for some people, which doesn't really seem very practical. It
Right.
seems like a very tough thing to get around right now. I
Right.
was actually talking to someone recently, and did you hear about this? Zendaya actually and Charles David Washington just finished a feature, uh, and they filmed it over the course of 7 days, I think. But what they had to do
Wow.
was quarantine. I think for they all got tested. Then they went to a ranch or like this area where there was nothing around for about 4 miles. They ended up quarantining for 2 weeks beforehand, and then
Wow.
filming like the whole cast, the whole crew. It was one location, so they did 7 days of shooting in one location, and
Wow.
apparently it was a proof of concept to see if they can produce
Yeah.
an actual feature. Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I hadn't heard about that, but I mean, those are the kinds of solutions people are putting in place right now, and you know, it's smart, and I'm glad people are doing things like that. The only thing is like production is so expensive. Like even not in a pandemic, that like
yeah,
when you add, housing a whole cast and crew for 2 weeks before you even start shooting anything, when you add that to a budget, then your budgets exponentially go up, and it makes it that
right.
much harder. But that's
Yeah,
really the challenge.
and now you've been able to do some content. You said recently, you were producing
Right.
content, but it's very like very safe um, uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
conditions.
mean, I can walk you through like,
Yeah,
at the beginning of the pandemic, like I was still working for Nickelodeon, and we had a lot of content that we had already previously shot. So, we just put that on hard drives, took it home, and we were editing from home. That's something that continued, across the whole industry. People were still editing.
yeah,
Um, Luckily, people can have great systems at home these days. Um, and then Nickelodeon produced a couple of things via Zoom, like we're doing now as well. So, Belle, who is awesome, she was
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Um,
I've worked with her.
so,
She's I can vouch. She's pretty awesome. She's like one
wow.
take everything, and
Yeah,
super nice.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, so we had a lot of really talented, really great producers work on that. Executive producer Luke Wall, who was really great to work with. And it was crazy because we'd never done anything like this. And, it was a standard TV, like hour television show. So we had like 5 different blocks, and
yeah,
everything had to be shot a certain way and edited a certain way. And there was long, long hours to get the edits out. Like I was working probably 16, 18
wow,
hour days for like a week to get the
yeah,
show done. um, but it turned out okay. I think it turned out really well.
yeah.
And that was at the beginning of the pandemic, um, back in, I want to say April, like beginning of April.
Right.
um, and then things kind of slowed down. Nickelodeon went back to the drawing board, like imagining shows they could produce during
Hmm.
this new phase, and they were all very much like this, like
Yeah,
Zoom. Um, I'm not involved with those at the moment, so I started doing my own content. I got back into my YouTube channel, and that's when I started doing film school with my buddy Carl, um, much like you're doing now.
right.
And then luckily in June, I started a new job with a wellness startup that is rooted in ancient Chinese healing practices. So they do
Yeah.
videos, instructional videos for Qigong and Tai Chi. And so we've started production on those videos. And the way we do that is we follow all the, production safety guidelines. So um, we shoot all of them outdoors. And the crews are all, it's a very small crews. There's only like 4, 5 people in the crew. And then we're filming one talent, one instructor.
Yeah.
And we, we make sure that we are an appropriate distance from each other, and we're all wearing masks, and we don't touch each other's gear, and
Yeah.
the standard things you would imagine. And
Right.
so
And
far
go
so good.
and going back to something you were saying earlier, how they were basically creating content that's very much like this, which is interesting as someone, you yourself have been a creator on YouTube and other platforms for years now, and it's kind of a level playing field now. You've got
Yeah.
Nickelodeon and the Colbert, like Stephen Colbert show and and the Tonight Show are basically they're YouTubers now. They've all
Yeah.
become,
Yeah.
this
That's funny.
aesthetic.
That's 100%. Like, that was my first thought when this happened. And Nickelodeon was like, oh, I guess we're going to shoot Kristen Bell at her house. And we're going to just like zoom in with her and she'll tell her what to do. And I'm just thinking, like, you know what, guys? Like, there's a whole world of gaming streamers that are like 10 steps ahead of you. Like,
Yep.
that they already have, like, you know, ring lights and cameras. Like, the Nickelodeon town hall, like, that we did, like, it looked like amateur hour compared to like what Ninja has been doing for like, the last
Right.
6 years. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. That's so true. It's so funny how people have become so pro, high level, top level entertainers with an audience of 1 million when they're
yeah,
gaming, and
yeah,
and now like so many people are behind the curve that have been doing it professionally on stage in front of TV cameras for years. Now they're like,
that's right.
how do I do
That's right.
this? It's
That's
interesting.
right. Yeah, because it's one thing to be a great entertainer, a great host, and that I think is the key, the most important thing.
Yeah.
But you have to really appreciate these homegrown creators, like like your PewDiePies and your Ninjas and and your Aristotles, who mastered production from home. Like, that's
Right.
really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that well, it's not as easy as you think. Like, the fact that like I watched like veteran producers from Nickelodeon stumble into figuring that out. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I thought, like, I took it for granted because I've been doing it also for years. I've been a creator on YouTube for years.
Yeah.
I just took it for granted that people knew how to do things from home, but they don't. They really don't.
Yeah.
The industry does not know.
It's kind of a remarkable. It does work both ways though, because I have worked on shows where they would take a really popular influencer who's got like 20 million followers or something like that,
Yeah.
and then they'll
Yeah.
have them host a show in front of actual cameras and on a stage, and they, like you mentioned Kristen Bell. When I worked
Yeah.
with Kristen Bell for a few days, she was on. She knew every line. She knew how to
Yeah.
address the camera. She
Yeah.
rarely had to do a second take for anything, and
Yeah.
so there is that professionalism on that side of the line too, which I find fascinating. So there's skill sets in both arenas,
Absolutely.
and now they're kind of melting together, and everybody's got to try to figure this out, how to do this. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, and hopefully we'll find the best of both worlds coming together.
right.
I
And I think
noticed also
audiences are
early in,
used to this type of content now, so when they see their favorite TV shows doing this, it's more relatable in a sense. It's a very streaming world that we're in.
that's
And,
right. Yeah,
yeah,
and arguably more people watch content like this than traditional media.
yeah,
Like, the numbers people spend, especially younger audiences, of course. Like,
right,
they spend more time on their phones. Like, they spend more time on TikTok, YouTube. Like,
yeah. Do you
TV
have a
is
TikTok yet?
struggling. I do have a TikTok, but I haven't done anything on it. I just watch stuff.
Yeah,
Because I love it. I mean, I think the most
it's
genius content exists on TikTok right now.
it really does.
um, it's really
Well,
amazing.
I look at TikTok as primitive filmmaking platform. Like it has
Yes.
very simple filmmaking tools that I think like little kids who are using it can actually learn the basics of taking clips and editing their length and putting them in different orders to create different stories. And I find that fascinating. I think Instagram is way more for like advertising your brand, your clothing line, your celebrity,
Yeah.
whatever. And then TikTok is for creative people who want to kind of tell stories in a sense.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's the thing. Like, about at the beginning of this year, my son was like, Dad, I really want to check out TikTok. And I was really hesitant because, like, the only thing I knew about TikTok was, dancing teenage girls. Like,
right.
it seemed like, I don't know if this seems kind of like a thing for teenagers. I don't know if my 9-year-old son really has any, but then I reluctantly let him, like, I went on there with them together and we started looking at stuff, and I realized it, like you said, it's a platform that is designed for creativity
Yeah.
and to empower, like, young artists to, like, just have fun and experiment and do new things. And it's so my son is essentially learning filmmaking from
Yeah.
TikTok,
Yeah.
and I love it. I think it's awesome.
It's super
So
cool, and I'm really into it. I'm still learning it, and it's fun to just kind of experiment with the different effects and all
mhm.
of that. And yeah, I think the algorithm. You mentioned how it was like, is it just a bunch of kids dancing around? And at first, when you first get it, it is. But what happens is the algorithm on that particular platform is just so well designed that it will start feeding you content that's very specific for you, in such a way that they're actually exposing bigger audiences to creators and very specific audiences too. So my stuff is just mostly like movies and jokes and comedy and stuff like that because that's what I watch more of. And I feel like Instagram hasn't really mastered that yet, or at least it's difficult to get in front of the right people on Instagram because it's just so um, spread out. Even if you hashtag away on something, you still might not get the exposure that you get on TikTok with their particular algorithm because it's pretty remarkable. I mean,
Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to last though.
Well, I hope it does.
Yeah,
It very much reminds me of, like, the early days of Vine, the heyday of Vine. Like, it was such a
yeah,
creative platform. And yeah, not to knock on Instagram. Instagram's great too, but
yeah,
Instagram does feel more like an older platform and a more brand heavy platform. It just feels slicker and not as, like, raw and fun.
right,
Um, so, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, sometimes you want slicker content.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess there's a place for both.
Definitely, there's definitely concentrations for for
Yeah.
Instagram versus TikTok. TikTok, in my just so far, feels like such a fun outlet for people who have creative ideas and thoughts that they want to create. I think a lot of people tried that with the Instagram stories a couple years ago. I had a friend, and he would just put like a bunch of stories that were little comedy bits in a row, and it was pretty funny, but it just doesn't land the same way.
No, it's like our neighbor, one of
Uh,
our kids' friends. It's
they
fine.
just walked. Hey,
Sorry.
how's it going?
I
Gotta raid
know.
the fridge.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, so Candyland points out on TikTok there's also dancing teenage boys. Yes, that's true. All kinds of people. There's
Yes.
also elderly folks dancing on there, which is also funny. Uh, like
Right.
elderly folks like myself. No, I have not danced yet on TikTok. The day that happens is the
Me
day you
neither.
know that it's all over. So, what about going to the movies? What do you think's
Oh
going to happen
gosh.
there? Yeah,
I do miss that dearly. I mean, it was such
yeah,
a passion of mine. And I'm
same.
sure I know I'm not the only one. Like, going to the movies is such a special thing. It, like, defined my childhood. Like, I still remember going to see, like, Back to the Future when I was a little
Yeah,
kid, or like the Tim Burton Batman, and it was like such a special thing. And then taking my
right.
kids to movies now, going to see, like, Frozen 2 or whatever, Toy Story 4 it's the best. It's the best, and not being able to do that kills me right now. And
Yeah,
but like, we know that it's going to be a high risk thing, and I'm not. I personally am. pretty risk averse when it comes to the pandemic. Like, I just don't see a good reason to put myself at risk and my
Yeah.
family at risk and everyone around me at risk. Like, I just want this to be over with. So
Yeah.
I just
Same.
want to, do my part. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if, you know, if the experts say wear a mask, okay. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, who am I to tell them I'm not going to do that? Like, I just, I feel like we have a social responsibility, a social contract with each other
Yeah.
to look out for each other. I don't know,
Totally. I think
without
it's
getting too
funny.
preachy.
No, I mean it's very true. It seems so simple. It seems as if this generation, this iteration of humanity is a little bit I mean, think about 60, 70, 80 years ago when they were like, okay, everybody, you're not going to be able to eat meat for weeks. You got to donate all your rubber for the cause, for the war, to help
Right.
protect Western civilization. And people did it, and it was fine. And now we're like this worldwide pandemic, and they're just like, cover the top of your nose to the bottom of your chin. And people are like, I can't, I don't know how.
I
I
know.
can't deal with it.
I know. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that, this country was like founded on the ideals of personal freedoms and doing what you want.
Yeah.
Nobody tells me what to do, but at the same time, it's like, this is just about looking out for each other.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
I'm wondering what even the protocol would be to go to the movies these days. I know that Tenet is coming out at the end of this month, and they're trying to
I
see
know.
what platforms to put that out on, whether you should go to the movies to see it. It's going to be released worldwide. It's probably going to be the most pirated movie, I think, because it's going to be released worldwide 4 days before it's released in the United States.
You're right.
Yeah,
Well, you know what I'm looking forward to is Bill and Ted's,
me too.
and I believe they're releasing that in theaters as well as streaming at the same time,
Yeah,
if I'm not
I
mistaken.
think
So
that's
I'll
true.
be
Yeah,
watching it from home. I'll
right.
pay the money and watch it from home.
Yeah, same. Though
Which again,
I have seen both Bill and Ted's movies 2 times in the theater when they both came out. So each
I
one
love
twice.
them.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I'm a
they're
sucker
so
for the Bill and
funny.
Ted's.
Me
I
too.
love
They're just clever and fun.
yeah, they're just dumb, like fun-loving dudes. And what's better
Yeah,
than that? Just guys
I
that are
know.
well-meaning and just not, not a lot going on up here, but their hearts are so big, and that's what I love
Right,
about it.
right,
And
right.
yeah, and we can all agree on music. Not all agree on music, but I think music is one of those great uniters. I think that if you got a good beat, no matter what side of the line you're on, left or right or whatever, you're all gonna dance to it
Yes,
because it's that seems
that's
to be.
right. If you watch Trolls 2, you'll know that's exactly the point of that film. That's the kind
Trolls.
of stuff I watch these
No, that's
days.
great. I really want to see the new Sonic the Hedgehog. I want to see, like, speaking of animated
It's
features,
great. It's
is it?
great.
Yeah,
It's much better than I expected.
is it? That's what I
Jim
hear.
Carrey delivers a masterful performance. He pretty much
Yeah,
makes the movie in a lot of ways.
right.
It's his performance is like insane.
Well, that's the thing. I loved the preview for that, and I was like, Jim Carrey looks like he's in perfect Jim Carrey form. That is
Yes.
the Jim Carrey that you want. Like everything he's
Yes.
doing, he's like 10 notches above regular, which is what you want him at. And
Yes.
fully committed, and I definitely want to
Yeah.
see a good Jim Carrey movie. Yeah, I hear that's good.
It's
Interesting.
great. I loved it.
Yeah, and also, what about the Despicable Me movies? I hear they're pretty good. Are they?
I I'm not as much a DreamWorks fan. I'm more of a Pixar guy. Like I
Yeah,
like, films that feel more timeless and classic. So I haven't really kept up with the Despicable Me
yeah,
franchise that much. So I couldn't tell you. I know kids love it. I know it's really funny.
yeah. I don't think DreamWorks quite has the magic that, like, say, Disney has, and Disney has always kind of had. I think, or Pixar. For I think Pixar is
Right.
probably at the top of really balancing an emotional arc in a movie.
Yeah.
Whereas Disney can, I don't know, Disney's hit or miss sometimes, but Yeah, I'm
Right.
just
Yeah. I mean, Pixar saved Disney, arguably.
yeah.
And we- in large part due to John Lasseter as a visionary. Um, I recently found this documentary from 2007, I believe, on Netflix called The Pixar Story. Have you
Hmm.
watched that?
I haven't seen that.
Um, it's excellent. Granted, it's from 2007 or 8. So it, it leaves off kind of, I believe, where Cars 2, I think, comes out.
Okay.
Or right. So, you don't get the latest chapters of the Pixar story, which unfortunately there's some, unfortunate things with John Lasseter. But
Right.
it's it tells you the kind of like the birth of the Pixar story, and it's so fascinating because you realize that John Lasseter and Disney were intertwined from the very beginning. Like he went to Cal Arts right at the
Yeah.
beginning of Cal Arts, which is an art school, started by the Walt Disney Company. And so he was taught by like their veteran animators, and he was in a class with people like Tim Burton and Brad Bird were part of
Right.
the school.
That's a
And
crazy class.
I know, can you imagine? I mean, those three
Right.
guys are legends. And so, yeah, Pixar and Disney always kind of were different sides of the same coin, and they finally came together, and you know,
Yeah.
the rest is history. But
Is that the documentary where they talk about how I think it was John Lasseter came in to save Toy Story 2 because it was going to go direct to video, and then they
that's right.
Okay, yeah, I did see
They
that
do
then.
they do talk about that, yeah. Which I didn't. I
Yeah.
had no idea. I had no
Yeah.
idea that was the story behind Toy Story 2, and it kind of makes sense because even though it's good, I would argue not as good as 1 or 3. Like 1 and 3 are
Right.
incredible films, and 2, I always felt like 2 wasn't quite up to par, and now I get why, because it was kind of like a Hail Mary. Like he had to come in and save
And
it. Like,
rework the whole thing. Yeah. And I
yeah.
know I've only seen part of 4 so far, but I kind of
Oh, dude.
yeah.
Oh, wow. That
Is
is a masterpiece.
is it?
It's an
Okay.
it's an I consider it yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's hard to pick a favorite because I really think 1, 3, and 4 are all genius films, but I was absolutely blown away with 4 when I saw it in the theater. I didn't think that I could like a film as much as Toy Story 3, which I think is my
Right.
favorite, and I think 4 was just as good. Um,
I'll give it
they just
another chance.
have a mastery of story, and I think one of the
Yeah.
things that was really impressive upon me when I watched the documentary, going back to that, is that they talk about how they'll spend 2 years on just the story before they
Yeah.
even like animate anything.
That's the most important thing. I always say on this show
Yeah,
that everything is a story. Every single thing is a story. You know, what'd you do today? Well, I went to the store, I bought milk and eggs, I brought it home. Like that's a story. You just told a story. Every song is a story.
but what
Um,
kind of milk?
yeah, exactly. And then you could go into that. See, that's where Pixar comes in. That's where John Lasseter makes it an
Yeah,
interesting story. Hey, Ron Perty,
yeah.
what's up, guys? On Instagram as well as Twitch as well as YouTube. If you guys have some questions for Justin, just drop them in the chat. Um, yeah, it's really important thing. I think so many people like Zack Snyder, for instance. We talk about Zack Snyder every now and then here. Really leans on the visual. Like he comes up with a story to describe a really cool image that he gets, and it's almost like this reverse engineering. Like, what are some of the ways that you kind of come upon a story personally, or come up with, um, like what
Yeah,
compels you? What are some of the things that
that that's a
drive
good
you?
question.
Yeah.
You know, I studied film in college, like a lot of us, and I was always taught, the traditional way to approach it is you think about characters and what they want. So that's, but then I'm also a fan of artists like David Lynch. I'm a big fan of
Oh, I
David Lynch.
love David Lynch. Have you been watching
Yeah,
his
and the
weather
way,
report? Here in
yes.
L.A., blue skies, golden sunshine.
Hey,
It's the
that's
greatest
a
thing.
good impression. I like that. But yeah, his whole thing is that for him, it's all about ideas. It's all about, and
Yeah.
I think what he essentially means is like a visual. So he always
Yeah.
starts with like an idea and he talks about it like fishing is an analogy he likes to use. You just go out there and just wait for that great idea to come to you. And then he builds story around that.
Right.
So I kind of try to take from both schools. I try to be a little bit in the middle. Like I try to like think of characters that are either like a part of myself that I'm trying to express, or a part of someone I know that, I feel like their story, they have an interesting story or an interesting experience that they're going through.
Right.
Or I'm also trying to think of like, what's the weirdest like thing I want to see that no one's done before,
Right.
and then kind
That's
of reverse engineer a story around that, which is, I think, is how David Lynch goes about things. Um,
that's what I love about David Lynch is that there's always something you might not have seen before, or just a feeling he'll evoke. They're very meditative pieces. Even Eraserhead, I've loved
yeah.
Eraserhead since film school. Every film student has to watch Eraserhead because I think it's the ideal,
Yes.
it is the perfect experimental, bizarre film that just never fails. And I think so many folks in film school try to emulate that kind of weirdness, but it always feels like they're trying to emulate that kind of weirdness instead of
Right.
creating something genuinely bizarre and meditative like Eraserhead.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you know what the difference is? Our Aristotle, it really comes down to craft, and comes down to like the amount of work and attention to detail that David Lynch puts into things.
For sure, yeah.
Um, I've been reading this great book my friend David Kleiler gave me for my birthday, called Lynch on Lynch, which is a, a series of interviews with Lynch, like just transcribed basically, and where he goes into great detail about everything he's done up until that point. And yeah, when you read how much work he puts into everything he does, it makes you appreciate, like, that's why his work is like just so endlessly fascinating and timeless.
That makes
He's just
sense
a cool.
actually because
Yeah.
even I was watching, he does a lot of experimental film on his channel too, on his YouTube channel. And I don't even know if it's experimental at this point when it's David Lynch. It's very deliberate, I think.
Right.
So but the things he films, you could tell he's toiled over the thought and executed it smoothly, and that's always something that I find very compelling about it. It's just he doesn't want you looking at something unless you're compelled by it, and I think that's
Yeah.
so genius. And even his weather report, his daily 1 minute weather report, guys, if you haven't seen that, I watched 30 of them in a row the other night because they're a meditation piece, and you can tell that he's doing that. I think as an artist, as a performance artist, he's doing it in a way to provide a consistency during this weird time. And it's so deliberate on his part to be like, hey, this is going to be sort of an anchor for himself or for you or for whoever. And he's kind of illustrating also how Los Angeles has very consistent weather.
It's
Blue
true.
skies
We're
and
lucky that
golden
way.
sunshine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be looked at I almost see it as a museum piece. I see like walking through
Right.
like the David Lynch part of LACMA in 20 years or so, and they'll just be playing his daily weather reports, just like and you can stop there and watch him for about 10 minutes and go, okay, this is something he did as a performance piece for a while, and
Yep.
very much like Maria Abramovich. I like your shirt. Super
Oh
easy,
yeah.
barely an inconvenience.
Yeah. Comment below if you know what this is from.
That is a great. That is
It's
great.
such a great series. I love.
Yeah.
It's called Pitch Meetings. If
Yeah.
someone's not familiar with it,
If you're
but
not
Ryan
familiar at
George.
it, if you're not familiar with it, pitch meetings are tight.
It's so
Yeah,
good. It's
it
so
is
good.
amazing.
I watched it, like you were saying, you binged the weather report when I first found Pitch Meetings. By the way, our mutual friend Malin was the one who turned me on to Pitch Meetings.
Yeah.
Um, we were
Okay. Cool.
working, we were working on a show together at Full Screen, and I ended up like binging like I don't know. There's like 100 of them, but I watched, like, I would just leave it on and watch like 20 at a time. They're so
Yeah,
good.
they're so good. I actually had Angie got it. She loves Screen Rant's
Yep.
pitch meetings. Angie's going to be our guest on Friday, and Malin was our guest
Awesome.
the other day. And
Yes.
if you guys want to check out those videos, they're up on the channel. Also, you can check out Justin's channels. He's at Justin Coloma on Twitter,
Yes.
and also on YouTube at The Gory Show. That's on the bottom of the screen. If you guys have any questions for Justin, let us know. If you have any questions about the state of the film industry or curious about what the heck's going to go on in the future, so are we. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a friend who's a notable director at Nickelodeon who does their big sitcoms for kids, and he was telling me that he believes he's going to be able to shoot again in October. So
Okay. Yeah.
um, you know, and I know every studio and every production company is going at their own pace, but that's one little piece of insider
That's
info that I've gleaned.
yeah.
Um,
I have a friend who had one day left shooting. I think they're shooting uh, the play without that mustn't be mentioned in the theater, Macbeth. That's and they're filming it over on the lot at Warner Brothers, and he had one more day left.
wow.
And then they shut everything down, and so it's interesting how there's a lot of productions that shut down, like the new Batman shut down for a while, and The Matrix 4, and I think John Wick. Yeah, all of these movies are getting
Bummer.
the production is being shut down. So
we're gonna be watching a lot of reruns, folks.
we are. It's a month,
I signed up for
months
Peacock.
Yeah. What?
So I've been watching that.
I know. I've kind of I've done this thing. I don't know. I might not be the only one who's done this, but I pay for a couple of subscription services, streaming services, and then I pass those passwords along to someone who we exchange a couple. Like I have Hulu, but I'm like, I'll give you HBO Max for Hulu. I'm not suggesting you do this. I suggest everybody pay for their content, but in a pinch, it's nice.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure you're not the only one.
Yeah,
there's got to be. Yeah. Have you checked out Peacock?
I haven't yet. What are some of the exclusive content that they have? It's NBC, Universal.
Yeah, the reason I even opened it up and signed up was I heard this great review, this like glowing review on PBS, which to me is a trusted. If I hear something on PBS, I'm like, okay, this is a good, solid review. But the reviewer was impressed with the show called The Capture, which is a show about someone who was accused of doing a crime because someone created a deep fake of them doing this crime.
That's like real. That's real stuff.
Yeah. And so I'm starting that, and it's great. And then there's also just a vast NBC catalog of old stuff. So it's just like a lot of, it's like an old comfy Rock. Like hoodie that's like feels like super familiar. Like, so there's stuff like Frasier that I used to love, Cheers, stuff like that. And sometimes like in the middle of the pandemic, like I just want to watch comforting stuff.
Exactly.
I started watching Titan games with The Rock, and that's super fun.
What is that?
I love The Rock.
Even know what that is.
Oh, dude, Titan games is the best. It's basically his American Gladiator. Yeah, it's just like an athletic competition, but the caliber of athletes that he has on there are amazing. Like he has Olympians on there, and just like really impressive people. And I just love Dwayne Johnson. He's awesome.
Yeah.
So and the show's really well made. Yeah. So highly recommend if you want something just kind of fun and mindless to watch. Yeah. Titan games.
I got Epix for a week, and I was watching the War of the Worlds series that they had going on. Apparently there were 2 War of the Worlds series in the last 2 years. One was an adaptation of H.G. Wells. And so the technology was like giant walking tripods from Mars, which I think that looks really good. I haven't seen it. And then there was War of the Worlds on Epix, which is produced by the French. And it's interesting. I was finding comfort in it in a weird way because it was like the end of the world. Literally. It was basically The Walking Dead. And they're having to fight off these alien robots, which is it's an interesting show. It's got Gabriel Byrne, which I always find him interesting. It says, Condyland says, ooh, the Capturer show. Sounds super interesting and very applicable today. Police mistake identity all the time for facial recognition, makes it worse. Yeah, what is the future of deep fakes and stuff like that? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah.
And not just deep fakes. There's also I listened to a really great uh, podcast from the New York Times called the New York Times Daily. I don't know if
Hmm.
there's any other listeners out there, but
Yeah,
they had
I
one
listen.
this week, I believe it was yesterday, that about how police departments use algorithms to do facial recognition on security cameras and stuff.
Hmm.
And so the episode was about how they arrested this man because the algorithm thought he was the thief from this
Hmm.
security camera. And of course it wasn't.
Right.
But like,
But
there's police departments already making arrests based on what these computers think like these people look like. It's crazy.
it's the same thing happened to my brother. We were at Madison Square Garden 2 years ago seeing Radiohead, love Radiohead, and and we were
Nice.
there, and he went to all 4 nights at the Garden. I went to 3 out of the 4. The night that I didn't go, he was taken out of line, brought into a back room, and interrogated for about 20 minutes at the Garden.
Wow.
And they were like, well, our recognition software. Pardon me. It's my own show, and I'm coughing through it. This is always funny when that happens. You always see the people like lose their. They're like, hang on a second, I'm coughing. My brother got pulled out and thrown into a back room for like 20 minutes. And they were like, well, your face was in the system. It recognized your face. And my brother is legally blind and hearing impaired and is no threat to anybody. And it's just crazy because they said that he was in the system, and that's the only reasoning they had. It's like, you tripped the system, now we have to interrogate you for 20 minutes. And he's been going to the Garden for 25 years or 30 years now. He actually knows people at the Garden that know him.
Wow.
And it was just they had switched over their management, or like their crew that works the Garden. So a bunch of had it been 6 months before that, someone along the chain would have been like, oh, Eric, we know you, which is, that's how often he goes to the Garden to see shows.
Wow.
He's friendly with it. But that's the thing. It's like, if you trip up the software, they're going to think,
Right.
yeah, that you're a guilty
Yeah, it's an
party.
interesting trade-off too, because I guess, I mean, it's also new. Like, are we really like getting enough benefit out of it to inconvenience like these innocent people? Like, you have to make those calls. I don't know the answer, but
Yeah.
you know,
Or it's like, is there a person that can also like double verify it at this point, at least? Because at some point it's going to be probably flawless at some point, maybe. I think technology is always fundamentally flawed because technology is made by people, and people are flawed.
Right.
So,
right.
interestingly, I'm curious about deepfakes because I feel like actors, as they get older, can just deepfake their own performance and play themselves at a younger age. I mean, we've been doing that for years now, especially with like Brad Pitt and Benjamin Button or something like that. It's only getting better. It's kind of creepy. I don't know if you've watched some of the deep fakes that they do. Jim Carrey as the Joker. There's like a 5-minute scene of him.
I saw Will
uncanny.
Smith in The Matrix.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is very weird because, he was originally who they wanted to play Neo, and he turned it down. So, somebody made a deep fake of him, and it's it's a deep fake, obviously. Like, it's not perfect yet. I feel like deep fakes are spottable by most people. But I want to see that Jim Carrey Joker. That sounds good.
It's pretty neat. You could still tell there's something weird about it, but it's getting closer to the point where they're matching the color, temperature, they're matching the vibe. It's just very uncanny.
I feel like, we're just a few steps away from being completely in a new era of, you don't know what's real. And that's the scary thing, I guess, right? Because it messes with our sense of reality in general. If you can't discern what's real anymore on video, then how do you know what's true? Like,
it's a strange new world. It really is. Because I think about that too. I think about algorithms and how they're creating new content for streaming services. And I almost feel like Netflix uses algorithms to create new movies, or at least know what people are
Wow.
searching. Well, I say that because, for instance, you had Bird Box. And Bird Box, I somewhat enjoyed it. I'll give it like a 3 out of 4. Maybe 2.5 out of 4. I found it. Did you see Bird Box?
No, I have not
It's
seen that.
it's basically it's a combination of movies. It's let's see. It felt like The Happening. Do you remember The Happening with Mark Wahlberg, the M. Night Shyamalan movie? Where
Yeah, I skipped that. I stopped watching M. Night Shyamalan's movies after Signs,
after
basically.
Signs, after the being
Yeah,
allergic to water.
yeah.
Well, The Happening was basically, you know, all
Sorry,
kids are
daughter.
invited. It's,
You want to say hi?
yeah, come say hi.
Baby, I'm on
That's
a show for the next few minutes. We're on a live show on YouTube.
you say hi.
So can you wait? Can you wait 15 minutes? You want to say hi to people on YouTube? She's wearing a Mandalorian shirt.
Oh, nice. Love the
I wish we had
Mandalorian.
another season of that to watch.
Yeah, I think they finished up shooting it, so we should get it by October, I think. Um,
Oh, good.
the kids, Jen the Fierce says, "Hi, kiddos," and Shy
Oh,
says, "Yes,
there she is.
Shy wants to see the kid."
Oh, you can't. Okay, I'm watching on YouTube. The YouTube crop is like this versus
Is it?
the. I'm looking at myself in Skype. Like,
Oh,
there she is.
hello.
Wait, you'll see her.
Hi.
There you are.
If she leans in just a little bit more, we'll all be able to see her. Nice to see you.
I'm
What?
surprised you're
There
usually
you are.
a little more shy. No. Violet, what's your favorite movie this
Yeah,
year,
what's your
2020?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
We recently watched the Larva movie, which was a Netflix
The Larva
COVID
movie.
release.
What?
There's a very strange Korean animated show called Larva. That's
Uh-huh.
really bizarre.
And that's on Netflix, or what was that?
Yeah, it picked up by, and distributed by Netflix, and they made a movie, which is essentially just a clip show of of the show, but
Yeah,
we're excited nonetheless because it's a new release.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What's the
I'm
last
sorry,
movie that you watched?
what's the last movie that you watched, Violet? I think that was it. What else? Well, The Trolls was a big release for
Trolls.
kids.
Now, Trolls 2, was that the one with Justin Timberlake with that song?
Yeah,
Or is
both
it-
of them. I mean, he's the kind of the lead of the Trolls franchise. Him and Anna Kendrick. And what's the new Trolls movie called, babe?
Total War.
Trolls World Tour. That's right.
Trolls.
And it's about how all the different music genres were at war with each other.
Wow.
And so it was about unity in the end, about how like they should all come together because
Yeah.
music is a great unifier. So that's when you were talking about music being a unifier, my mind went to Trolls immediately.
Of course, as it should. Polka and rap artists should all come together. Everybody.
Yeah,
Let's get
exactly.
country music and classical at the same time. Yeah. Shy says she's adorable. I agree. Awesome shirt. Jen the
Thank you.
Fierce says very true.
And
Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. Awesome shirt.
Wow.
the
That's-
only people who can come is
Okay,
Ruby,
baby.
Royal, and
Okay, I'll talk to you about it in 10 minutes. Okay, baby girl?
Nice to meet you. That's Violet.
That's Violet, yes.
That's a lovely
She's
name.
6. She'll be turning 7 in about a month.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a fun age because you definitely start to see like the like third grade, and like
cool.
they were like little people who had like thoughts and opinions and spontaneous. And I always say this: when you're a kid,
Yeah.
you haven't yet learned to smile politely, which is like
It's true.
you're
don't-
just- you express
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they're so real. Like
Yeah.
you'll know exactly how they feel about something. That's what
Exactly.
I'm one of the things that I've been trying to do during COVID, at the beginning of the year, I was making short films with my creative partner. And we were making like one a month. Like that was kind of our goal. Like Carl and I were making, and then the pandemic hit and it put an end to it real fast. And so we got 2 films made, and now we're like, what do we do? Like we need a creative outlet. So I'm trying to like teach myself animation.
Okay,
I've
yeah.
done a couple of animated shows, but I want to get better at it and better at drawing. So I use Violet as my focus group because she'll tell it to me straight. Like she doesn't feel that she doesn't need to be.
Right. Yeah, that's the
So
perfect audience. It's just like tell me the
yeah,
truth.
exactly.
They will.
It's great. Yeah.
That's very true. That's how like back in the songwriting days when I was doing that, focusing on that, like if a little kid is bopping around to it and singing the song, it's good. It's going to connect,
Yes.
which is interesting. And it was always the kids were like the razor deciding audience. Like if the kids are walking around singing it, that you're onto something, which is really, really fascinating. It's
Yeah.
just being like I think we learn later in life to like veil our opinions through several layers, and that kind of
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
But
well, I think we're trying to be, sensitive and nice to people, but then sometimes it goes too far. But yeah, it's nice to be when you're. I like Condi Land's comment about the one thing in common between a kid and a drunk is that they won't lie to you. And it's funny because, especially when my kids were younger, like when they're like 3 or 4, they were like toddlers and just learning how to get around. It was like watching a drunk person, like the way they like stumble around and stuff. So
they're just falling over. Yeah,
yeah.
that's very true, Candyland. Yeah, so we do this show every day at noon. It's the Aristotle Full Throttle program, and today our guest, I'm just doing the station ID, is Justin Coloma, filmmaker, creator, extraordinaire, soon to be animator. We're learning, and
Hopefully
that's I find animation exciting because you've kind of got an extra added layer of control over the process, which
Yeah. It makes it
it's
exciting
intimidating,
and
but it's
terrifying.
yeah.
Because I mean, you can do anything, and that's the most terrifying thing sometimes as a creative is like not having
Right.
guardrails, not having limits.
Mhm.
Then it's just like, but what you realize quickly is like there's just tremendous amounts of work involved, like
Yeah.
tremendous. And so that's your limit. How much time can you invest? So then you're figuring out like, okay, so like personally, I'm going to use Adobe Character Animator because it's a shortcut. It makes it a lot easier and quicker.
Mhm.
And it's not real animation or traditional animation where you're drawing each frame,
Frame right.
or even 3D animation where you're rigging and animating 3D models. That's a whole other ball game. But yeah, there's a lot of different kinds, and so I'm picking one that I know like I can tackle.
Yeah.
And that's kind of and then you're like, okay, so I know I can do XYZ in this piece of software, so I'm just gonna, those are my parameters, I'm gonna stick to that and try to tell these little stories just using those tools.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
I wonder if they're going to come out with a new platform that allows for animation like TikTok. That would be interesting.
Oh yeah, I know. I actually was looking on TikTok to see if there was any kind of like homemade animation on TikTok. It didn't seem like animation was a big thing on TikTok. Like
No.
it doesn't seem like a thing on there. I know there's quite a bit of animation on Instagram, stop motion and such. But yeah, I don't know what the best platform for animation is. Something I was looking into.
You mentioned Bill and Ted's. Now, I think Bill and Ted is a great uniter. They're legitimately supposed to be uniting the entire universe over a song that they write. I'm excited for that movie. I'm very excited for that movie. I'm sad that I'm going to have to probably watch it at home. But
Yeah.
what is your opinion on franchises that last decades? I mean, I guess because I feel like Star Wars, this is probably a huge discussion to start at the end of the show, but I feel like there's so many franchises and things like that, and a lack of originality in Hollywood. And I say, I mean, you can be original with a franchise, but I think having unsourced new material in the realm of film and TV is few and far between. And how do we
I know
approach
it's so
that?
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get wanting to, like, I was stoked when Disney bought Star Wars, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm stoked to hear that, like, the Wachowskis want to do more Matrix. Like, bring it on. Like, I'm happy. But like right now I'm really excited about new seasons of Umbrella Academy and the Boys, because those are two new franchises that I thought were awesome.
Right. I started the Umbrella Academy, and it's really interesting. Yeah, it's starting to hit its stride.
I got one episode. I'm one episode into the second season so far.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give it a chance. So far, it didn't quite. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the first season, but I'm gonna give it another episode or two. See if it hooks me.
It's definitely one of those shows where, you know, you're kind of investing in the interpersonal drama that's going on, which is kind of should be the main thing. We should really be worrying about where these characters end up in anything that we're watching, whether the character is the setting itself, or if it's the people on screen. And I'm getting into it. We're getting to know each character, and the thing I think about immediately is something like Smallville, which lasted 9 seasons or so, and I definitely watched the first 6, but it started to sort of devolve into just like a high school. I mean, it was always kind of a high school drama. So I'm wondering, from what I've seen of the Umbrella Academy, they seem to be mixing that idea with X-Men, with, you know, its own little thing.
I said in another video I made that it was basically like X-Men, like made by Wes Anderson, kind of. It felt like, it felt like if you took Rushmore and the Royal Tenenbaums, and then but everybody's a mutant, like with a superpower.
That's a good description.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's a lot of similarities. Yeah, just in the tone and this, like the way they approach character, and but it was fun. And the cast is so good. That's what like really like drew me in. Like I love the guy who plays Five and the guy who plays Klaus are my favorite. Those guys are amazing. So
I'm enjoying how each one of them are really leaning into. I'll notice that there with the angle that they're trying to do their edge. Shai says Umbrella Academy was written by the Hate Saying QA and Gerard Way. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's
so
really
I mean, it was a graphic novel.
Right.
Before it was this is the second volume, but yeah, and it's a really interesting, imaginative. I mean, Gerard Way is a super talented guy.
Super duper talented, yeah.
It's cool that they took a leap of faith and made it into a show, and the showrunner Stephen Blackman, I believe, did a really nice job of taking the ideas in the book and developing them into a fully realized show. That first season was really strong.
That's rad. Have you ever seen My Chemical Romance? Have you ever caught it?
Actually, no, I haven't. Yeah, no, I am a fan. I think they're great.
Yeah.
I mean, not to like, I haven't seen them live, but I was on set for one of their music videes once.
Oh, that's awesome. So he decided to become a rock star and a comic book artist. And it's just, he's a very inspirational type of figure. Whether or not, I've always been a huge fan of them, whether or not anybody is. I mean, it was the emo era. But they transcend, I feel like, that era. Absolutely.
Like,
I think the Black
genuinely
Parade.
Good band. Yeah. I even like their last album quite a bit. Killjoys, I think it's called.
I haven't heard it yet.
Their very last album is very different, and they go a little more pop and more like 80s vibes, and I love it. It's so cool. And then unfortunately they broke up.
Yeah. I think they're getting back together to do
That's
now,
true.
Actually.
Yeah. Now we have to wait like another year before.
It's like a little legendary moment. They loaded in their own gear. They played this little secret show, and then they left. It was really, really cool to see them.
Thanks for
it. I love it.
Man.
And what's coming up for you?
I mean, honestly, like the learning to animate really well and doing like little animation shorts, because I can't film with actors right now, really, like in a way that I feel comfortable with. So I'm
Yeah.
just looking forward to doing some animation. I have some friends that are great voice actors, and yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm
Awesome.
designing a family of aliens that it's just a spoiler that they secretly run a donut shop in the valley. So
I love it.
that's
I love aliens and I
so
love
yeah,
donuts. Sign me up.
great, perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justin.
Yeah,
This
man.
has been this has been awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. Shy, Angie, Condi, Land, Ron, Perti, everybody, Tatiana. I'll see you all on Thursday. Tomorrow, headed to the beach. And thanks again,
Nice.
Justin. Bye,
All right,
everybody.
take care,
I'm
man.
Aristotle. Full throttle. You're bro in the know with the fro. And I'll see you later.